चांद देखता रहा, बड़े पुचकार के चांद ने पूछा, बी कहो क्या कहना है। अम्मा भी सोते शहर के अंधेरों को देखती रही, which means the world was still sleeping about the fact of her wakefulness. The reason why I left television and graduated to cinema was that television stopped offering those kind of roles. But fortunately for me, cinema started offering that kind of roles. I was standing looking at a set being made, and he just passed, and on his way back, he just patted me and he said, "Remember one thing, there are no two people in the world who are same," and left. And that left on me a lasting impression. The whole business. But yes, definitely, as I gave you example of Dr. Kimov, that just to fill the register, it was said released on such and such that day at 11 o'clock. Nobody looked into the proper distribution of the film or proper release. What were their compulsions? I have no idea. Content has always been attacked by various people. It's not just one section. World over, it has happened. But there are people who found ways and means of communicating. For instance, Chaplin. Please allow me to say that the perspective about things might change, but there were wars always. There is this kind of reaction always from one section or the other section. So we as people living in the society have to live up to what we want to do.
Hello everyone, welcome to Filmcopath. Today is a great day for us and our viewers as we have with us an institution of acting whose works have mesmerized us for the past 5 decades. He has appeared in several highly acclaimed movies and TV serials, giving us memorable performances to reminiscence and continues to amaze us with his exemplary skills. Winner of 3 national awards and 3 Indian Telly Awards, today we have with us actor, director and author Pankaj Kapur. Sir, what a pleasure it is to welcome you to our little channel. We are truly overwhelmed and thankful to you for agreeing to discuss your work with us.
I must thank you guys for speaking such kind words for me. I must say that. And I would say hats off to Arup because he has been following me around, and hats off to his patience, I would say, because it's taken really a long time before we have got to this moment. So, wonderful persistence. Congratulations for that.
We have Eshan joining us for the discussion. He's a film historian and he's a big fan of yours, and he works on New Wave Indian cinema, working on multiple book projects which will be out next year. He's also the founder of Karwaan Heritage,
Nice.
who have worked towards initiating dialogues on histories, heritage and cultures among the general public.
Wonderful. Nice to see you, Eshan.
So, sir, my first question to you is that yours is a vast range of work, and of course, it is impossible to cover everything in one interview. We will touch upon our favorite films of yours, our favorite performances, and also have some film recommendations from you. But before going there, can you tell us about your first movie and theater watching experience? Was there any film or play in particular that attracted you to the medium of acting?
I would not name a single film. I think it was the impact of cinema of those times, which was frankly mostly commercial. But I got an opportunity of sort of starting to act at home with my mother. So my mother was an initial influence on me, and I started working in plays in school, etc. So that was the basic influence. Then it got graduated to the commercial cinema. And then my father introduced me to some English films, which sort of matured my mind, and I started thinking about what I should be doing and what kind of acting I should be doing. But to be honest, till I joined National School of Drama to train myself as an actor, the impressions that I was carrying with me were all hardcore, mainstream commercial cinema.
Could you tell us a little bit about the English films which you watched at that time, which you enjoyed watching?
I think it were some of the classics like Ben-Hur, like Ten Commandments. I'm not sure about Ten Commandments, but Ben-Hur for sure. And then there was a film called 633 Squadron. I remember very clearly. It was an Air Force film. And being a little boy, I mean, under 10, I would say, I was very excited to see the way they had handled the whole subject. And I must also mention over here that I also happened to be exposed to a play that one of my teachers later in School of Drama, Sheila Bhatia, had brought down to my hometown, which I happened to see. And I was amazed to see that theater can be done like this as well. So that was kind of first introduction to professional theater for me. She had a group called Delhi Art Theater. So that theater was responsible for sort of introducing me to theater as such, to the world I was going to join a few years later.
You mentioned about the theater bit, so I think we should talk about your NSD years, your training with Alkazi Sahab, who is considered to be the man who established modern theater in Delhi. How was the Mandi House of your days compared to the days that we live in today?
Well, I haven't been there for a while, but I remember my days very, very fondly. I think those were most formative years of my life, and I think I imbibed a lot from National School of Drama, especially Mr. Al-Qazi and the then staff at that time. They helped me. I was only 19 years of age when I joined School of Drama. I passed out when I was 22. So I was a hungry, creative person. I would say in at that time only an actor, hungry actor. Later I realized that I was imbibing a lot more than just acting from where I was learning. So it was some total of the training that I got over there. And then I got an opportunity of being with the repertory company for about 3-4 years. So I think my grounding basically happened there. On an amateurish level, at my home, in my school, in my college, but on a professional level, at National School of Drama with an excellent director in Mr. Al-Qazi and a very good staff of School of Drama at that time. As I mentioned, Sheila Bhatia, she was an acting teacher for me when I joined School of Drama. So all these people put together and a whole lot of others who contributed to the journey that I have led till now.
And what was the conversation that happened in NSD? Because at that time, a drama student getting into film was something which might not be a very common incident in NSD. What did you discuss films in NSD?
Yes, we did. I mean, as a matter of fact, Mr. Al-Qazi was a very visionary man. And he had seen that his students will be going into television because at that time there was no television either. And they'll be going into films. So by the time I came to my third year, he had organized a film appreciation course by the Film Institute people in National School of Drama, knowing that tomorrow when my students go out, it'll be difficult for them to fend for themselves only in theater. So they need to explore themselves in the medium of television and films, which I think was a great thing. He was a great visionary, a great teacher, an excellent human being, a wonderful leader. I mean, I'll fall short of words for him because I am genuinely very, very fond of him. And I personally feel that he took a lot of personal interest in me, in grooming me in those 3 years when I was there in School of Drama. So yes, there was a kind of exposure to films. And films means the films are masters of cinema. I mean, to be honest, that's where I saw for the first time some of the masters, including Mr. Ray. I saw Pathir Panchali for the first time in my film appreciation course. And I saw Chaplin extensively. I saw Kurosawa extensively. I saw Godard. I saw Bergman. I mean, we were exposed to world cinema, including films like Pyasa and films like Do Biga Zameen. So we were exposed to all kinds of cinema, which I think was a wonderful exposure for a 21, 22-year-old boy before he steps into the professional world, which I think was a great blessing in those times.
Even Tughlaq's the play Tughlaq, which was they set up in Purana Killa in Delhi, which was already quite cinematic. So did that also influence you later on when you also wrote your own film much later? But that idea.
I think all this must have. I'm sure about it. It was wonderful to be a part of that Tughlaq, which was staged at Purana Qila in Delhi. I was part of all the three plays, Tughlaq, Sultan Razia, and Andayub. So I was part of all the three plays that were staged there. And it was a wonderful vision of Mr. Al-Qazi again. And we were just in first year School of Drama, just trying to find our little ways as to how to stand on stage, to be honest. But here was a teacher who was teaching you everything, which in future would be greatly handy and would cement your basics from the beginning.
Sir, a lot of times we have heard you mentioning that the script is everything for you, and you have been choosy in your earlier years. You are a bit more flexible these days, maybe, but earlier you were very, very choosy about your script. So how does one differentiate, once you are given a script, like this is something you want to do and something you would not be liking to be a part of?
I think it's very personal. It's to do with your sense of aesthetics. It's to do with what is the kind of cinema you want to associate yourself with. Uh, what is the kind of work that you want to do? What is it that it is offering to you as an actor? What is the film saying? So a whole lot of things put together. How much is the director comfortable to work with? How much work does he know? What is his vision of the subject that he has picked up? But I would say all this happened a little later. In the absolute initial years, because one wanted to step into the world of cinema, and I was just sheer fortunate that I got to work in some of the finest films like Jaane Bhi Do Yaro. I mean, one of the greatest, I would say,
Indian cinema,
Indian cinema or dark comedy or whatever you want to call it. There was a new director and a new set of people who were writing it. So they were wanting people who were actors. And I was fortunate to be a part of that film. Similarly, a few earlier films that I did with Mr. Benegal, with Satyu. So all these people were sort of basic starting points. But after that, after a few years, frankly, after a rather successful stint in television commercially, which is Karamchand, I became very choosy in terms of what is the kind of cinema that I want to do. From there onwards, I used to be very particular about the scripts that I was choosing. Even Karamchand, I was very particular about the script because my grounding was theatre. And we were working on plays written by world-class writers. So from Shakespeare to Arthur Miller to Rabindranath Tagore to any of our modern playwrights for that matter. So what one is trying to say here is that we were exposed to a very solid text on which we were supposed to build. So the idea was that whatever you are doing, it should provide that kind of thing to you to be able to experiment and come out with a performance or work which will be worthy of your contribution to the given project that you were doing.
We will definitely come to Jaane Bhi Do Yaro because, of course, that is one of our favorite films to talk about. But I want to talk about another film, which is Ek Ruka Hua Faisla, where you played a character of much older than your age. And you have done that in Chamile Ki Shadi as well, I remember from an interview. And so when you have done that also for the stage and the screen. We did not have the opportunity to watch the play, but we saw the screen version. So how difficult was it to adapt a theatrical production to a cinematic production like Ek Ruka Hua Faisla?
Well, to be honest, we had prepared the play and we had done about 25 shows. And Basu Chatterjee saw the play and he wanted to film it exactly the way it was. I wanted to change the characterization slightly for cinema, but he insisted that we keep it exactly the way it is. So we ended up doing exactly what we were doing on stage. So if you had seen the play on stage, you would see exactly what you see in cinema, excepting change of one or two cast members because one person was not available at that time. One or two people were not available, so they had to replace those actors with some of the people who were working in cinema at that time. Otherwise, it would just be the same.
You mentioned Satyu Saab in a passing reference. I would like to come to that because that was, I think, your first film Kahan Kahan Se Guzar Gaye with Satyu Sahab.
Yes, it was my first film with Satyu Sahab, but not my first Hindi film. To be honest, I was coming back from shooting from Mr. Benegal's film called Arohan, which was made for West Bengal government. And on my way back, I stayed back in Calcutta for a couple of days. And Shama Zaidi, who was also writing Shambhai's film and was also writing Satyu's film, one of Satyu's actors did not turn up on time because he was stuck with another film, which was being shot in Hyderabad at that time. And they wanted an actor at that. And it's just a matter of chance that I was there. And I was asked to see Satyu, and I went and met him, and he liked me. And he said, okay, come tomorrow for shooting. So that's exactly how it happened and how I landed up with that role.
Satyu Saab's films always had a hard time in release. I think this also had to wait a little for the release.
Yes, it did, though it was Anil Kapoor's first film. Uh, Later, he became a big star. But I mean, the kind of subjects that these directors choose, it's not that simple. Especially in those days, it was not that simple. Today, we are more fortunate with so many channels, with so many things which have got an opportunity where your work can be showcased. But at that time, there was practically nothing other than the cinema hall, or later television picked up some of this work and exposed this work to a common man. So I think those were difficult times for people.
So is it safe to say that even if today the commercial cinema won't allow films like Mohan Joshi Hazir Ho or Kahan Kahan Se Guzar Gaye Ye Manzil Wo To Nahi, and all sorts of these realistic films or so-called art cinema, but filmmakers now have an option that OTT has come up, which has become a good alternative for them to express their art.
I think we have been fortunate in a certain way that for last almost 2 decades, um, things have moved differently in terms of uh, thinking in cinema. If you notice that even the commercial cinema is coming up with content now, it's no longer just
Yep.
rubbish. It is content on a larger scale where there is a way of presentation which is completely different from realism, or is a take on realism, which is fair for any filmmaker to decide how he wants or she wants to pick up a subject and interpret it for the field of cinema. So I think if you notice from almost early 2000 or late 90s, this trend started. And I was very fortunate that when the this might be an answer to a question that you might be asking me later, but nevertheless, that the reason why I left television and graduated to cinema was that television stopped offering those kind of roles. But fortunately for me, cinema started offering that kind of roles. If you notice, since the 2000s or late 90s, the face of cinema changed. And even that kind of cinema got money and got release. I mean, Makbul happens to be one of those films which was made by Vishal in 2003, and it got a very good release in the theaters. So I mean, these some of these people were trendsetters, I would say, and the audience also realized that it's an enriching experience to see something of this kind. I mean, it's a different matter when you come to Satyajit Ray and when you come to Mrinalda or Tapan Sinha or somebody, because these people had a different audience and they had audiences world over. They were already masters of cinema. So but I'm talking of the strictly Hindi cinema at that time, when it was very difficult for people to find release. Like, even I remember when I did Ek Doctor Ki Maut, it was an NFDC film and it was released. So I, with a few friends of mine, went to see the film. It was running in a theater at 11 o'clock in the morning, only show on half arc. In those days, the system was arc system, half arc. So my friends were from Film Institute. They went to the projectionist and said, "Why are you playing it at half arc? Play it at full arc." And we had this film where the front benchers in the theater were clapping at moments in the film, which sort of indicated to one that it would have done commercially very well for the amount of money that was spent on the film if it was released properly. So these films were only released to put it in the register that the film released, but they were never given a proper release. So I would say one was fortunate that the face of cinema itself changed. Even today, if you see, um, it has become more so because you're right, OTT platforms have opened up. There's a lot more that people can do. Uh, but even at that time, uh, courageous people were wanting to do and make the kind of cinema that they wanted to make. And some of them, actually, most of them did succeed and found an outlet in one place or the other to be able to get their money back.
Yeah, but sir, say something like a Dharm, which you did only a decade back, or say, even the Mahabharat sequence in Jane Bhi Do Yaro, is it still easy to do a film like Dharm or that kind of a sequence with the kind of, outburst we get these days? I remember you talking about Bhir, when people were even judging the film before that got released. So something like Dharm is, I don't know. Do you think it is so easy these days?
Why not? What is the message that the film is giving?
Absolutely, absolutely. But
I mean, I'm saying, and the message is universal. I mean, there should be nobody in the audience who should be able to feel offended. On the contrary, people who might want to feel offended will feel grateful that something of this kind has been made, and that is how things are being projected. So I don't see any. And another thing one needs to realize, historically, we have seen that content has always been attacked by various people. It's not just one section. World over, it has happened. But there are people who found ways and means of communicating. For instance, Chaplin. I mean, all his films for his times were way ahead, and they had a lot to say. But he found a way of communicating that, which was humor. And similarly, in Jaane Bhi Do Yaro, the content was dark, but the way it was portrayed, it became very attractive for the audience, and it also sent the message down for them, which I think. So the filmmaker and the producer and the exhibitor have to find a way of one making the film and then seeing how they can exhibit it. And I don't think we are talking about, we are saying, is it today? I think it has been always so. Please allow me to say that the perspective about things might change, but there were wars always. There is this kind of reaction always from one section or the other section. So we, as people living in the society, have to live up to what we want to do and try and do our best in the given scenario.
Right.
There's no perfection. The world was never perfect. It is not perfect. It will never be perfect. We have to find a way of communicating ourselves and our ideas to our audiences in a manner that it gets communicated, and within inverted commas, if there are people who might feel offended, do not feel offended and feel, yes, I mean, this kind of thing should be talked about. Yeah. On the contrary, they should come on our side.
Absolutely.
I think that is an extremely enlightening point, that there always has been opposition and there always will be opposition. Like, you cannot do anything about it, really.
Of course. Yeah.
I would like to talk a little bit about Jaane Bhi Do Yaro, as we brought it up. It's an epic film with an epic ensemble, and you can, like, the ensemble, you can match it with Khamosh. Khamosh also had an epic ensemble, to be honest. But then we also have these kind of behind the scenes stories about Jaane Bhi Do Yaro. Can you please tell us a little bit about the shooting of the Mahabharata scene? How much of it was in the script, and how much of was it like an improvisation from the actors? Any anecdotes you can share about that?
I think most of it was written. So great amount of credit to Ranjit Kapoor and Satish Kaushik, and of course Kundan Shah, who was the main person behind it, who wrote the dialogues and who wrote the situation and came up with things like a little bit of improvisation on the part of the actors is liable to happen, because in humor, to bring it alive and to make it look right then and instant, there has to be that little bit of right at that moment thing happening from the actor's side. But most of it was written, it was scripted. That's one. And the major anecdotes about Jaane Bhi Do Yaro are that there was no money, and we were working round the clock, and we went to Alibag to shoot the sequence where that cake phenko thing happens. Thoda khao, thoda phenko. And anything and everything that can go wrong in a film went wrong. I mean, the camera choked, the lights went off, the generator conked off, the actors had theater performances, you name, and the problem happened. But we were working 24 hours, which means every actor would go and rest for an hour and a half, come back, give his shot or her shot, go back and rest a little bit, because we knew that we had a lot of constraints and there was very little money. So we had to complete the film. So I think in that sense, the spirit of the unit, especially seeing the leader, which is Kundan Shah, who was himself putting himself in a lot of trouble to be able to complete the film. Everybody was so committed to the project. We were almost ready to do anything. Well, I had a couple of interesting anecdotes happening with me. There is the sequence where I have Satish Shah and Meena and one or two more people, Satish Kaushik, and we have this crane going up, up a building. I'm supposed to be a builder.
Yeah.
And so when Kundan took me to see the location, I froze, because we went to the 25th floor in an open lift, which had sides which were only 1.5 feet or 2 feet high. and rest was all open, and there was just a wire on top of us, which was pulling us up. And the three of us, me, Renu Saluja, and Kundan Shah, the three of us stood in that, and they pulled us up to the 25th floor. I almost died. And he said that I want planned to shoot that sequence in this kind of a crane. So when we came down, I requested, I said, look, this is too small. Where are you going to put the camera? How is it going to happen? And then I saw a kind of larger kind of crane, lying around there with a proper, what is it called? Piping all around. I mean, pipes all around it. So, which felt safe because they were about this level comparatively. So I said, why don't we use this so that it is also bigger and it'll be. So he asked the owner's son, the building owner's son. He said, yeah, we can use this also. It's not a problem. So eventually what you see is a much larger lift which is going up, which is being pulled up, that whatever you want to call it, the crane is pulling that thing up, in which about 2-3 camera people, one lighting person, Kundan himself, and us 5 actors are performing. And just before we sort of were being pulled up, Binod Pradhan, the cameraman, decided to give the lift a little push, so that if you notice, it's moving like this, and you get a 360 view in the background constantly. But we were petrified because, and an incident did happen. Once the shooting got over, then we all got down, and then the next shot was on the 25th floor. There is a silhouette shot that he had to take after that, and so the owner's son said that a lot of people can go in the lift and it'll get landed over the 26th floor, and we can climb down one staircase. So we said, okay, fine. But I think nobody realized that they overloaded the lift. And I kept saying that I think we are too many of us, and nobody listened to me. And eventually, once we started going up, the lift got stuck at about the 7th or the 8th floor.
Oh, God.
And there was panic. And the guy operating from top there, this young boy who was a son of the builder, sort of called him out and said, pull it up. And the guy started looking the other way. Then he said, put it down. He started looking the other way. So we panicked. Then he said, okay, take it next to the building. So that he started moving, and slowly the lift started moving towards the building. And I kept shouting to everybody, don't panic. Everybody, please step out very carefully and slowly. Don't speed up. But nobody heard. And we are fortunate that there was no accident. Everybody jumped out onto the floor. And we were just next. It was not as if the lift had landed. We were just next to the building. So there was a gap in between. But everybody jumped out because everybody was scared. And eventually, once we went up, the guy said that the wire was getting cut with which we were hanging. So here was a huge panicky situation. We were lucky. God was on our side. So we all got saved. Otherwise, 25 of us would have fallen from the 7th or the 8th floor down to the ground in this whatever crane or lift you want to call it. So this was quite an incident in Janavi Doyaro, which I remember all my life. Yeah.
That is rather traumatic, really, to have.
It is.
And when you were making the film, Pankaj sir, did you had the idea that this is something great which is going to happen, which will change Indian cinema forever, which will be revered as the film to watch and enjoy all the time?
Because we spoke to Nasir Saab and he had no clue. He says that I really did not understand what's happening.
None of us had any clue at all. We were just committed to the project because of the sincerity of the director and the wonderful script that we had at hand. But that it will land up where it landed, none of us had any idea at all. We were all hungry actors. We were all there to work and give our best to the project that we were working on. But beyond that, we had not a clue that it will become a cult film, that it in those days I still remember, did 39 weeks in Sheela Theatre, Delhi. I still remember that. So it was phenomenal for a film of that kind to make money on the table, not only in theatres, but on the table, it made a profit. So I think that was completely wonderful. But none of us had any clue at all. No.
I mean, the comic timing of the film. If I was just watching that Mahabharata scene, and there's so much happening. You are
Yes.
there as Drupad, and then Satish Kaushik comes and says, "Good morning, sir," and you say, "Good morning, Ashok." I mean, the characters are still there. I really don't know how things were
Yeah.
written. The way, I mean, you talk, "Good morning, Ashok," in the most as if it's an office going on.
I mean, it all happened. It just happened. That's what I'm saying. That it was written and it just happened at that given time. So
Right.
we were all lucky and blessed to be a part of that project, I would say.
So you mentioned about the lack of budget for Jani Bhi To Yaro. That reminded me of Basuda, who was called the producer's director because he was well within his limit. If the director gave him 1 lakh rupee to make the film, he would make it in 80,000 rupees. How was your experience working with Basuda in two very different films? One is a comedy film, and Chameli Ki Shadi. On the other hand, there is Kamla Ki Maut, which is a very serious film shot in a chawl setting. How was that experience?
And Ek Ruka Hua
And
Faisla.
Ek Ruka Wo Faisla, yes.
See, what I would say about Basu Chatterjee, I loved him. I liked his cinema. I loved him because the guy was straight up about everything. Like, if he has committed 10 rupees to you, you can draw your 10 rupees the moment you want to. It's not a problem. But he would negotiate beforehand, which I think is the thing that every director in those days had to do. They should be doing it even today. If they want to make films which work commercially, and I mean, that's how work should be done, na, in terms of where can you minimize, how can you economize. And he also chose the kind of subjects that he chose, where he knew how to manage within the amount of money that he was getting. So I think my experience of working with him in each film was wonderful because he one treated me very well. He gave me a lot of leeway in all the characters that I played. Ruka Faisla, of course, was already a prepared role, but even in Chameli Ki Shadi, he let me do a lot of stuff that I wanted to do and contributing to wherever he needed to. Similarly, in Kamla Ki Maut, it was a tedious subject, not up one sleeve at that time, but because I trusted him as a director, so I said, okay, I'll become a part of it and let me explore a completely different uh, life or different world for myself, which I was not exposed to. So I thought it will be interesting, but I trusted Basuda. And with each film of his, what was clear was sometimes he even told me that, what's the matter with you? Have you too much money? Why are you not drawing your check from the office? So I mean, I remember him telling me once. So I'm saying he was a very straight up guy. So, and knew how much he requires for a given shot and would do only that much, which is why he became very economical director to make any kind of film, especially for the producers.
You just mentioned Chameli Ki Shadi. Now, I think others have also mentioned Karamchand and others. Actually, there's a personal story with Karamchand. My father, who was a big acting enthusiast, did his first play, Karamchand, in his school, and he acted your role in that, and he won the first prize as a student.
Wonderful,
So there's a
wonderful.
personal story that he loves to tell everybody
Yeah.
whenever they meet them. So the question is, how do you approach comedy? There's one slapstick comedy that can make anybody laugh. There's situational comedies, other kinds of comedies. Then there are comedies that come out of sadness, out of the greatest traumas. So how do you approach comedy as an actor? And also because Karamchand came at a time when you did a lot of traumatic films before, a lot of serious works.
Now, see, I see. There's no hard and fast method to it. It just comes intuitively, and you look at the script and the situation, and within that given situation, vis-a-vis the character that you have been given or entrusted with, you do things vis-a-vis that character and situation. Then humor comes automatically out of the situation itself. You don't have to make faces and you don't have to do slapstick stuff because you're not capable of that. I mean, somebody like Chaplin was capable of that. He could mold his body and do kind of things that no normal human being can do. But then he was trained for that. Since he was a small baby, he he was uh, he was trained for all this kind of physical activity, which is why he could manage it. But likes of us, we have to see the situation, characterize, and I mean, though here we are talking of a genius, we are just common actors who are trying to aspire to be actors. But I'm saying, nevertheless, sense of timing, that's a very important thing. And to be alive in the situation and make it happen right then instead of a studied situation. Uh, Otherwise, there's no hard and fast method that I follow personally as an actor. I just go by the script and the character that I'm offered.
Pankaj sir, I remember when you said, when Eshan talked about the comedy coming out from, say, a heart, from a place of sadness. I remember the first episode of For Teacher which I watched, and I remember you. There's a lady who is coming, who is supposed to be a foreign lady, and you go to her and you say that these are the kites made by Kalidas, and the lady says, "Are you lying to me? I know Kalidas was a poet." And then you say to her, "That is the truth. If the people of this country who are poets cannot make money of the poetry, they have to sell kites for that." So that was one
Suddenly,
of the memories.
your comedy is like, it's going comedy, but suddenly in between there's something which you will take back. After it finishes up, you will remember, oh, it also had that kind of a message, or whatever way you want to put it.
I think these are also a lot of good writing by writers, and then you are put in a situation. Here in For Teacher, I was playing a half-cooked character, run away from the pages of a novel. So it was a very novel idea to play a character of that kind. So I had to play somebody who seems like a person but is not a person, who seems fictional but is not fictional. So it was a very tedious kind of characterization to follow. And this friend of mine who directed it, Mr. Anil Chaudhary, and wrote it, he has a very good sense of humor. And so he was also directing it. So he wanted to treat it in a certain manner. So he treated it in a certain manner. And we were just contributing to whatever was being done. That's it.
So it's all in the script, sir, because it's very subtle things. Like I remember Kallumal Koilawala. I mean, he is waking up from sleep and putting that topi. I mean, this is also there in the script, that you do this and you put the topi.
No, these are things that you improvise as an actor.
It has
But
to be.
the fact that the Kallumal will wake up is something in the script. Similarly, I was wanting to point out something that some of you might have seen, some of you may not, because it was slightly Punjabi in its tone, called a program called Philip's Top 10, where Satish Kaushik and I played two fools, and it hit the roof in terms of popularity, especially down north. In that, there was hardly a script. In that, Satish and I used to sit down over a cup of tea and improvise for 2 hours in terms of dialogues and situations, etc., and then go and shoot it for next 10 minutes. That's how it was. So sometimes, but that is probably the only serial or humor that we have done, which was first we defined the characters and then we let go. And we improvised almost the entire situation. Though we used to have a storyline, a kind of thin storyline, but rest of it was completely improvised by Satish and me.
Roy, I have a question.
Yeah.
In commercial cinema or even in art cinema, there might be actors in front of you who are not as trained as you. They might not be professionally trained actors. How do you, in Hindi, के आप तालमेल कैसे बैठाते हैं उनके साथ? Because sometimes you would like to improve on a scene, but they were not ready for that. Did that also happen with you?
Well, I would say it's happened very, very rarely. I have been very fortunate to work mostly with very competent actors and some very fine, very great actors also. I've had the opportunity of working with them. By and large, I've never had this kind of a problem. I would say that maybe once or twice, but one leaves it to the director to handle it, because it's the director who is the captain of the ship, and he should be able to, work on the other actor, and not sometimes even the other actor might come to you and say, "Could you tell me how am I supposed to do it?" I always put my foot down and I say, "No, it's not my job to tell you. My job is to tell myself what am I supposed to do in my character. You should go and talk to the director or to the writer to find out the roots of the character. It'll help you." So in certain cases, it has helped. They've even come to me and thanked me that this was the right way and they didn't need to copy, and they just went to the director and writer and understood what they were supposed to do. So I think I've been a little lucky in that, and I hope I stay that way in years to come. Yeah.
Say about your art of body language, sir. I mean, every character, there's a lot into your body language. And specifically, I wanted to talk about Makbul. The way you create the aura of Abbaji, I mean, we do not see a lot of violence from this man, but his silences, the way he looks, his walks. I mean, how did you work on getting that, for this character?
See, as I always say, as you have said right at the beginning also, that script is the Bible, and you dig out everything out of the script. So when the script says that this guy is a don, and you go back into the background and realize that at a young age, when he was in his teens and all, must have been an extremely active guy, must have been a shooter, must have killed people, must have moved about, etc. And now that he's retired, he's chairborne practically. He doesn't go for missions alone anymore. He just sits and orders. So there's a kind of sedentary thing that has come into him, which gives him that kind of body, which is heavier than a young boy's body, which used to move about constantly. Here is somebody who might be sitting in a chair and ordering around things for the last 20 years. That was one of the reasons of why there is a paunch, which automatically helps a certain kind of walk to happen. That's one. The second is the usage of voice. If you notice that the guy is constantly eating pan.
Yes.
So I have known people who have had pan for over 40, 50 years to sort of lose the tone of their voice and have to actually find it a little difficult to communicate. The rest of it, I think, with the help of the director, we try to work out such moments so that the authority comes across. For instance, that tiny little sequence where he is digging his teeth and everybody is sitting silently till he takes that, that was created at the spur of the moment. It was not there in the script. But similarly, a few other things. We worked a lot on the look. Vishal and I really worked a lot on the look. And or even on the script in terms of, for instance, that Gilori Khaya Karo Gulfam Zaban Kabu Mein Rahegi, the scene which was added later. Because I discussed it with Vishal that, look, we are talking about this fact that this guy was a deadly killer, that now he's become a don, but in his young days, he must have been somebody who was, feared for life. And he used to be on his feet all the time. Let's give a glimpse of what this guy used to be or what he can be to the audience. That's when he wrote this. He wrote the scene, which really, in that little 1 minute sequence or 1.5 minute sequence, it communicates the ferociousness within the guy. So these are the kind of things that we worked on before we went on to shoot, which helped to build the character in terms of what you eventually happen to see on screen.
And what was your reaction, sir? I mean, you have done theater, you have done Shakespeare. So when Vishal ji approached you with this kind of a script where, he changes the Lady Macbeth part completely differently, the police become the witches. So what was your initial reaction to this version happening?
I think Police Becoming Witches was one of the finest adaptations that I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
To be honest.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought that was such a statement. What an adaptation. Well, when it comes to a matter of Lady Macbeth's track, that she falls in love with somebody and she thinks her love is pure and clean and stuff like that. Well, that's human weakness, yeah. I mean, let's see through it. No? We can see through all that when she's saying Hamara pyar pak thana miya, etc., etc. You see through it that she's been sleeping around with a don to get some work in films. Then she finds this guy who's a deadly looking guy, and she also sees the future in him. So she decides to have a relationship with him. So it's all opportunistic, no? If anybody's seeing it, can see through this entire thing. From that point of view, in the original Lady Macbeth is also opportunistic. You'll be surprised that the original Macbeth written by Shakespeare does not have her becoming pregnant. It was Kurosawa, when he made Throne of Blood, that he decided to give a reason to her, which was more than just a minor ambition. The reason was that she's pregnant. He made her pregnant so that she wants the child to become the king. therefore, she decides to kill the king with the help of Macbeth. So gave a motivation to that character. So from that, I mean, for me as an actor, frankly, whatever adaptation was done, I thought it was a very good adaptation. That's one. Second is that then you have to forget Macbeth. Then you have to come to what is there in front of you. Obviously, when you're adapting it to Indian circumstances and you're putting it in today's time, where are you going to put kings and queens? In the underworld, where that kind of situation exists. So I think from that point of view, he did a great job. Actually, all his adaptations have been. Even Heather was a very good adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
I felt, which was excellent work. So I'm saying, then after that, you start concentrating on what has been given to you. I was first offered another role, which Piyush played finally, and this role
Banco.
came to me much later. Banco. This role came to me much later. It was much later that Vishal said, Pankaj, bhai, look at this. I said, you first asked me to look at that. He said, no, please try and look at this. I said, give me a month. And he gave me a month. So I went through the script and I saw what can I do with it. Then I said, I need to discuss it with you and the screenwriter, Abbas Tayarwala. And we had 3-4 sessions in my office about the script, about the character, about how are we doing it, what are we taking it, what are we looking at. Then I said, okay, I smell something that I can maybe take on and give some kind of body to it. And that's how, we went ahead and in terms of, I mean, a lot of people, I am open to the ideas of being questioned about, especially any of my characters for that matter, but especially Maqbool. If there are any questions that why this or why that, 2 of them I've answered just now. The reason of the paunch and the walk would happen because of the paunch and sedentary habits, etc. And it also allows authority. And I had requested Vishal to take people who are much taller than me around me, so that the bodyguards much taller and yet they look upon this guy as the deadly guy, adds on to the personality of the person. So those are little things that we kept adding on to give a body to the character. But while performing, while doing it, you don't think about that this will be a remembered character by my audiences or by filmmakers or whatever. At that time, you are acting. You're just working as a unit. You're working with your co-actors and you're trying to justify the character that you're trying to play and do your best to the character how you understand it, and for the satisfaction of your director. Rest, I mean, there's nothing that one can say beyond that.
What a ensemble that was. And that Lady Macbeth track actually adds a lot of sensuality, which we rarely find in Hindi cinema. You know that Dargah sequence where there's this chemistry between Tabu and Irfan, and then there is this scene where you see she has bruised her leg, and the way you take the field and you kiss. I mean, there's such a lot of subtle sensuality happening across that first 1 hour 40 minutes into that film.
Yeah.
Which is very less seen in Hindi cinema. Oh, tell us also about The Blue Umbrella, sir. I mean, that's again a film where your body language is impeccable and the accent. I mean, that Himachali accent you have put in that film. How do you work on that kind of an accent?
I think I was fortunate because I've been going to Himachal a lot. It is one of my favorite places, Manali, for instance, and I'm exposed to this language. So I had heard it, and then I asked Vishal if I can use it. He said, yes, you can use it. And it came naturally to me because I had heard it since I was a kid. So I've been hearing this accent and this kind of thing, which added to the character that he had written, to be honest, because I mean, down there in a tiny Himachali village, the whole story is set about a shopkeeper who is slightly greedy about an umbrella and turns out to be a villain in the whole thing. What a wonderful story, I must say, of Ruskin Bond, which Vishal did a wonderful job of writing a screenplay for. So I'm saying, for me, playing that character was more important, and being that person. I mean, that's what I would like to say, that for that time, when you're making the film or you're shooting, you live that part. And that part is different from anything else that you have done as an actor. That's what I find most challenging job and most satisfying, when I'm able to differentiate between people and not play the same person all the time. This also answers your question of body language and things like that that you talked about, because one is deliberating about the fact, which was something fleetingly mentioned by Mr. Al-Qazi in my National School of Drama third year, where I happened to be playing two characters. And I was standing looking at the set being made, and he just passed, and on his way back, he just patted me and he said, "Remember one thing, there are no two people in the world who are same," and left. And that left on me a lasting impression. So, wherever possible, not forcing myself, but wherever possible, there is a possibility of creating a new human being, is something which um, I really love doing. I mean, I find that as a part of my craft as an actor, that if I am able to, it's not always that you will succeed. If I am able to, then it's a wonderful sense of satisfaction that you derive, whether the film has become a hit or it has not become a hit, whether your character has been loved, not loved, is a different matter. But what I've noticed is whenever I've been able to do that, people have liked the film also, and have liked the work that I've done also. I mean, be it Ruka Faisla or Doctor Ki Maut or Maqbool or Blue Umbrella or Matru Ki Bijli Ka Mandola or Chameli Ki Shadi or whatever else, you want to talk about, is they're all different people. As people, when you see them, they seem to be different. They are not all Pankaj Kapur.
Yeah.
They are those people which we are wanting to portray in the film.
Yes, I think that is so true. Now then when you say it, I can reminisce in my mind that yes, all of these characters have their own individual takes, individual styles, and the way they interact with the circumstances are so different. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about two directors. You talked about Basu Chatterjee, Mrinal Sen and Tapan Sinha, both of whom you did really acclaimed movies. With Mrinal Sen, of course, Khandahar, which won the national award and went to Cannes in uncertain regard, and with Tapan Sinha, of course, the national award-winning movie for you, Ek Doctor Ki Maut. So, how was your experience of working with Prinalda and Tapanda? Because as Bengalis, me and Arup both have followed them a long time and are
Yes.
big fans, big admirers of their work.
I think I'm lucky. I'm really lucky in certain ways. I'm really lucky that initial years of my career, I did a lot of work in Calcutta, or I would say Bengal. And I was exposed to some of the finest filmmakers, some of the finest people, be it cameramen or art directors or even actors, some of them. I remember them very fondly, and one of my finest friends, one of my best friends, who is no more unfortunately, lived in Calcutta, called Akshay Upadhyay. He used to write for Sajjit Ray, the Hindi dialogue, and he was also a very prominent writer-poet. But he died in an accident, pretty young, in his 40s. So I have had a very long association with Bengal, and it was really fortunate for me that somebody like Mrinalda decided to cast me in his film, and there was so much to learn from him, and with so much knowledge that he possessed about cinema in general and life in general, and a very talkative person, would always be there for you and very affectionate. I mean, I was also very fond of Geeta Di, because Geeta Di and I worked together in Arohan, so in Shyam Benegal's film. So I got an opportunity to meet Mrinalda with Geeta Di, and later, I mean, it became like a little bit of a family scene, I would say. But Mrinalda, full of ideas. I also did a television series with him. I did a couple of episodes of television with him also. But Khanda was because these were early days for me in cinema, it was a good learning experience for me, working with Mrinalda. And also there was K.K. Mahajan, who was on cinematography.
Yep.
He was very fond of me. So I got a good relationship happening with him. As far as Tapanda is concerned, I think a thorough gentleman, a man who, as a director, created amazing atmosphere on the set for an actor to work on, and gave complete independence to the actor to portray the character the way he or she wants to, but provided that complete atmosphere to the actor to be able to come up with that creativity, and was always there to guide you slightly here, but very gentle, looked after you in an amazing manner, with like a thorough gentleman would, or a thoroughbred man would. I have very fond memories of both of them, and I'm grateful to both of them for casting me in their films. Uh, a little extra to Tapanda, because he cast me in Doctor Ki Maut, which I discovered today that when I meet somebody at the airport and they tell me, "Do you know that this is being taught in our institute?" And I get stunned that it is being taught in institutes as a role model for how persistence should be, you know, kept, and how you should not give up, etc. Wonderful, 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 and a wonderful story to be told. And I had great time working with the cast, and great time working with Tapanda. And I'm a vegetarian, so he used to see to it that some kind of decent vegetarian food came for me on the sets. He would personally look into it, which are very beautiful moments to uh, remember all life, I would say. So I have great fondness. I also happen to work with Sandeep Ray,
Sandeep Ray.
and I also got an opportunity of meeting Mr. Ray
Okay.
on two occasions. So those are also greatly memorable things, that the fact of meeting that master of cinema who I had seen his work when I was in school of drama, to be able to be in the same room as him, to be able to hear his voice, to be able to hear his wisdom, to be able to spend a bit of time with him. So enriching, so enriching. And I had very good time working with Sandeep also. So I've got very good memories of Bengal, because I've done a lot of work in Bengal. Even recently, I did a small role in a film called Lost with
Yes.
Tony Da, the director. And I had very nice time working in the 7, 8, 9 days of work. And I'm looking forward to, he's thinking of a script, he said a few years back. I hope it has taken him this long, it doesn't take him more time to come back to me with the script. So I'm still waiting for that to happen.
So
So tell
wonderful to
something,
hear.
like in the Dr. Kimon, it is kind of influenced from this death that happened for one of the scientists. But in the film, we see, the ending is different. I mean, it's a more hopeful ending. You ever had any conversation with Tapan Sinha on why he wants to end the film that way? Or what was
I
his take
think,
there?
but I think it's always better to be positive. It's always better to say that, not to end it at that his persistence ended in death. Instead of his persistence, took him to another level where he's being invited to be a part of the scientists who work on world level, not on an individual case level. So it's an enhancement of that character. It's an upliftment of that character, and also sending out a message to people who are facing this, not to get dejected, to keep the hope up. I remember this beautiful line um, in Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator, when in the end he, as a dictator, gives a speech and he spoke for the first time. It's a great speech. Let soldiers not be treated by like cattle, etc. And then he addresses his girlfriend and he says, "Georgia, look up. There is hope." So I'm saying, what a great line. He's talking of Second World War, yeah. Look at a person in the middle of all that, and he's at that time playing Hitler. He's playing Hitler at that time. In those circumstances, also, he's saying, let's look up, let's keep our hopes up, let's be positive. So the message out there is, be positive. Don't give up. Situations and conditions will happen in life. That's a part of life. Nobody can control that. But if you have a positive attitude, you'll be able to sail through them.
I would like to take you back to a few years behind what we are talking about right now, to Richard Attenborough. Okay, you
Okay.
talked about all your classics, but this Richard Attenborough's film that some people think Gandhi became famous by that film, we have to really talk about that. And how was your experience working with Richard? Because you not only worked as an actor there, you also gave voice to the Hindi dubbing of Ben Kingsley. The question is also because as an actor, it is easy to act out because you are trained to act. But as a dubbing artist, how difficult was it to give voice to Ben Kingsley? When did you get into the character of Gandhi to give the voice? How was that experience?
A very enriching experience, but I felt they were being unfair to me, because I told Richard, because He made me dub one of the most difficult scenes in English to check whether, because he said I can't understand Hindi, so if you could dub it in English for me. And that's a scene where Gandhiji is fasting and he's hardly able to speak. There is Meera Ben next to him. He's in his ashram, etc. And so I dubbed it for him, and I said, "Look, you gave the script of Gandhi's film script to Ben about a year and a half before you started shooting. You are asking me instantly to go out there and dub." He said, "I know I'm being unfair, but just do it for me." And then, fortunately, with God's grace, it turned out well. And he said, "You're dubbing." They chose me right then. And he said, "You're dubbing." So when we were dubbing, I used to dub, you won't believe this, but I used to dub 11 hours a day, 8 to 8 with 1 hour lunch break. And the editor was on my side, the sound editor was on my side. And half of the time we were trying to correct language. They were great people who had translated it to get the sync right. So if you see the Hindi version of the film, you will find Gandhi's dubbing almost 70-75% in sync, and a whole lot of other characters out of sync, because we spent whole lot of time on a daily basis on just getting the lip correct for that. And then, because I would say I was only 27 at that time when I did this job, I would say God's grace that you could create a voice from the age of 22 to 72, whatever, Gandhiji till he was alive, and you get those intonations and all that were required. But for me, what was also essential was that the sync should come right. Otherwise, people will get distracted while watching the film, which we achieved by working a lot on the script. Otherwise, it was a very tiring experience, yes, yet a very enriching experience. And Richard was very happy with me, which is what mattered to me, that the director at the end of the day is happy with what I've done. So at the end of the day, I was happy too.
You have worked in a lot of NFDC films, be it Satyus or Kundan Shah, Shyam Babu, Govind Nihalani, later on Basuda, even Sudhir. A lot of people claim that NFDC failed because of the lack of distribution and the overburden of bureaucracy on NFDC. Similar to what happened in Ek Doctor Ki Maut, the doctor dies because of the ostracization faced by. So do you think NFDC also killed this movement that was kind of taking birth at that time in the 80s, 90s because of over bureaucracy?
I can't really comment on that. One, I am completely out of touch with NFDC for last maybe 30 years something. To be honest, I haven't done a NFDC film in the last 30 years. And probably the last one was Sudhir's film that I did. Ye Wo Manzil To Nahi. I don't think I've done any film after that with NFDC. I do not understand this whole business, but yes, definitely, as I gave you example of Dr. Ki Maut, that just to fill the register, it was said released on such and such that day at 11 o'clock. Nobody looked into the proper distribution of the film or proper release. What were their compulsions? I have no idea, because I'm not a technical person. I am not a bureaucratic person. So I really do not know how it functions, because they must be having their own difficulties about things or how or what they can do with it. But I'm sure there are ways and means that institutes like these world over are able to actually create a whole lot of great filmmakers and great films and see to it that it reaches out to the world. I would say there's still time for them to wake up. I don't know what's happening. I'm not criticizing them. No, I'm not, because I don't know anything about it. I don't know how it functions today. I have no clue. But I would say that in today's time, when there is so much of OTT platforms, there are so many channels, so many festivals, when Hindi films or Indian films rather, in all languages are being looked at by the world, it is an opportunity that they have to encash this opportunity by picking up young talent, by picking up good scripts and saying, guys, go out there, make it, and we will see how we sell it. So all that they need is good marketing team. In case they come up with a good marketing team, everything all else will fall back. That's what I feel. But I could be a novice talking about this because I actually have no knowledge of how it functions. I am more of an actor, director, writer, rather than get into the technicalities of how these things function. But I'm sure this little suggestion that I've even talked about, they must have already considered, discussed it. They must have had board meetings. A lot of filmmakers must have talked about this to them, etc. Sometimes you require just to step up at times. And once you do that, things follow. For instance, I would take example of Vishal when he decided to make Macbeth. He wanted to make Makbul. He just wanted to make it. And he said, I want to make this film, yeah. Come what may, I'm going to make this film. So if you have that attitude, then I'm going to market my cinema. And I'm going to see to it that the world buys it. And I'm going to make money through it so that more people can come and make films. I'm sure that we have brilliant minds in our country. There is no way that we cannot do. I mean, frankly, half of the world, India is ruling in terms of IT industry. I'm saying, so we have no dearth of brains. So, I mean, if the brains are applied and there is tenacity of purpose, there is no reason why we should not succeed.
So you have worked with few actors, in their formative years when they were, they are in very initial films like Irfan in Ek Doctor Ki Maut, Pankaj Tripathi in Dharm, Amir Khan in Rak. So did you see them, did you see them growing up to the cult actors later they became in their career? Did you find that?
Nobody, to be honest, nobody can see that. All that you see is that this guy is honest towards his work. He knows his job. He applies himself well. These are the only things that you can notice at that time. Rest is destiny. Yeah? Rest is what scripts come your way, how the films are released, how they do well, what is the kind of films that particular actor picks up in years to come, what are the kind of people he associates himself or herself with for the years to come. Those are things that are decision making for them. For me, I can only say that when I was working with them, they seemed very professional. They were dot on in terms of their work, and that gave me hope that these guys will be doing well in their careers in the years to come. That's the only thing that I can say.
Pankaj sir, can you talk us a little bit about your book Dopahari, set in Lucknow, and it is a bittersweet experience for the readers. And so I want to know specifically about the motivation and why did you set it up in Lucknow, and what is your connection there?
See, the 100% truth I may not be able to tell you here, but partial truth I can tell you. See, I had given this subject, this thought. This thought came to me from my wife's mother, Deena ji. So Deena Pathak ji used to stay in Dadar, and whenever we would visit her, I would notice that there were two stories of these huge wooden staircases, which we would go up. And when we were inside the house having lunch or dinner or something, you could hear, if somebody was going up fast, you could hear the thumping of the footsteps on that staircase. So that's where the thought came to me. And she used to live alone in that house. That's where the thought came that a lonely woman gets scared. And I thought of first writing it situated in Bombay. But when I sat to write down, the first word that came out of my pen was Amma B. And the story, and this is no exaggeration, I wrote Amma B and the story got transported to Lucknow. And it is one of those things which is rare because I have written that novella in just 4 days. So the pen kept flowing. I don't even know from where that language came into me, of that. I have no clue about it. And I'm not trying to be, how should I say, I'm not saying कि कुछ great ऊपर से उतर आया था, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. But it just happened. It just happened that, and then I discovered, oh, this is my language. I can actually write it. Then I wrote a lot of short stories or even in scripts and all that. This language got incorporated. But at that time, while writing Dopahari, then while writing, everything started happening. And I was very fortunate that I could find the kind of end that I gave to the film, to the book, because this book was actually written in 1990, when there was not even a talk about girl child. There was no concept of even education of essential education of girls or adult women. And here in this book, I was giving it a twist of a woman who lives alone in a Haveli and finds meaning in her life by working and discovers her her own self. And a 65-year-old woman who does that way back in 1990, which I think was, uh, in my understanding, something very unusual and slightly revolutionary in its own way, to say the least, about the story. In today's time, when you hear it, you don't find any big shakes. You get moved by the story, you laugh in the story, you associate with the character, you all that happens. But you will say, okay, no big deal. I mean, all the women are working today. What the hell? What the? But to think of a woman who's 65 years of age in Lucknow in a Haveli, uh, way back in 1990, uh, and actually realizes her own worth at the age of 65, which is why I call it not night, I call it dopahari. That is still midday for her. She still has many years to go. So she's just, that's why I call the story, the novella Dopahari. That it is like, it is that time of her life. She still has half of the life left to be able to implement this and take this forward in the years to come. Rest, um, I read it out to a friend of mine. He loved it. I read out to director School of Drama. He said, read on stage. So I read it on stage in School of Drama. When you're doing stage, you do a bit of lighting, bit of sound, all that. Everybody loved it. Then, but it still took another 10 years before I started doing it on stage in Bombay. And then we went world over. We went to America, we went to Singapore, we went to Dubai. We have gone to a lot of cities within India. We have performed twice in Calcutta. So I'm saying then, and it is just that I hold the book in my hand and I read it out to my audiences with a bit of light and music and a bit of stage setting. But fortunately, it's very impactful, and the audience gets completely into the story and gets very moved by it. Especially when we performed abroad, a lot of people were even offended because they were reminded of their people at home. So from that point of view, but I'm very happy, and my wife worked towards getting it printed. I never thought of it, but she was keen that it gets printed. So she found the agent and she found the publishers, and uh, I'm grateful to her for doing this.
On the
And
aspect of the language, I read it along with Amritlal Nagar's works and Himanshu Vajpayee's Kissa Kissa Lucknow. And Pankaj ji, the language that you have used in the book, I am from Kanpur, which is just 80
ji,
kilometers away of Lucknow. The Avdi that you have used here, it's like a native of Lucknow writing the story, as Amritlal Nagar wrote 70 years ago and Himanshu Vajpayee wrote a few years ago. It's commendable.
beta, I have not a clue. I am telling you, na, when I took the pen and I put it on paper, the first word came, अम्मा बी ने बड़े से पलंग पर करवट ली और आंखें बड़ी घड़ियाल पे जमा दी. उनका वक्त का अंदाजा हमेशा की तरह सही था और देखती रही जब तक कि घड़ियाल ने 3 का ऐलान नहीं कर दिया. It just kept flowing. It was not something that I was thinking कि अच्छा अब वो क्या हो रहा है, अच्छा मैं लैंग्वेज क्या लिख रहा हूँ. No, it just kept flowing. So sometimes things like these happen.
And you mentioned that there were only 2 editions and three editions by the editor's side in the book.
No addition from the editor's side. Nothing. No addition from the editor's side. Only last, in the end, I have added 4 lines when I started performing it on stage. See, earlier, once she gets the check, have you read the book?
Yeah.
Has any one of you read the book? You have.
Yes.
So if you have read the book, you would know that in the end, she receives a check
Yeah.
for the work that she has done.
Yes.
And she can't believe that she has earned this money, because she always got money from either her husband or from her son. She never thought that she was worth anything at all in life, in terms of working or in terms of making her livelihood or whatever. And the earlier version was that she shows it, she's on her bed and she shows it to her husband's portrait, and says, I've earned this. But on the stage, I needed the character to move, me to move. So I said she went out onto the terrace, which made it also larger because there are lines like there's communication with the nature. चांद देखता रहा, बड़े पुचकार के चांद ने पूछा, बी कहो क्या कहना है. अम्मा भी सोते शहर के अंधेरों को देखती रही, which means the world was still sleeping about the fact of her wakefulness in terms of the literary meaning of the moment that had arrived in her life, which also means that it has arrived in her life, but there are so many millions in whose life there is still darkness. And that's when she shows this check to the moon, who's still addressing her as Amma B. And she says, no, don't call me Amma B. I have a name. And the name is Mumtaz Siddiqui, which is what makes it, in my understanding, worth every bit that I invested in the novella. So that's the only addition. Otherwise, I have cut one line out, and these 4 lines have been added. Otherwise, no addition from the editor's side, nothing at all, not even a word.
Wonderful.
That was my condition. Yeah, but they were very sweet about it. They were very kind and nice about it.
Wanted to know about your favorite films, books, and web series, like Indian and international. It can be very well be your films as well, but just wanted some recommendations from your side. What you're watching, what we should watch.
I don't think I have any such favorites. थोड़ा चाय देना. I don't think I have any such favorites. I go by some total of experience. Like somebody even asked me, which is your favorite character that you have played? I can never answer that because all my children are dear to me. So it's a question of, you must read almost whatever comes your way, whether it is hardcore fiction or it is great literature or it is commercial kind of writing, because all this put together will enrich your personality. Otherwise, it will become one-sided. Then you will have understanding of only one kind of thing. But if you want rounded knowledge, then you should see as much of masters of cinema as you should see the hardcore commercial cinema, to be abreast with the times, and then pick and choose. Nobody's forcing you to do this particular kind of thing, but expose yourself to it. If you don't, then your knowledge becomes very limited, and you will stay within that. Allow yourself. You never know what out of that you will pick up and interpret in your own way tomorrow or in the years to come, which might become a landmark in terms of thinking, in terms of filmmaking, in terms of writing, in terms of interviewing, in terms of how you present things, how you think about things. So don't close your doors to anything. That's what I would say. Allow yourself everything to seep in, and then select and throw. Like, I don't know much about computers though, but that's how we do. I mean, whatever I've heard in terms of computer, you decide what to see. But everything is available. On internet, everything is available. You decide what you want to see. So that's your personality. That's your person. But allow yourself not to get restricted to only intellectual stuff or only great writers. No, you never know. You might find some great piece of writing by a street boy, which 40 years from down might become a huge name. Who knows? Or that line might inspire you and make you the greatest writer or speaker or filmmaker or whatever. You never know that. So I think keep yourself open. That's what I would say. And don't restrict yourself to, except in case your sense of aesthetics seems compromised, then you can take a call. Well, I'll see this much and not this, but this is not my, and that's each individual's own choice of things in life.
Any particular movies which you have watched recently you enjoyed? Any web series?
I've been seeing some web series that my children told me. Some of them were nice, but nothing that I've liked Jubilee, this web show that is that. I thought Motwani has done a great job.
Yeah,
he has done a great job. I really like that because it is really well made, and from my understanding, I think it's very well made, and he has stayed true to the times, etc., which is nice. I am not too much of watcher. I'm not too much of reader anymore. But when I get into a stint of reading, then I read continuously for 3 months, 4 months. Then there are gaps of maybe year and a half, 2 years. Um, Sometimes my own writing also happens. I do a bit of painting also. So yeah, I keep myself busy with. I do cooking. I love cooking. So I spend a bit of time in cooking also. That's how it is. I mean, I would say I remember when I was a young boy, just an actor. My father had gone and met Mr. Al-Qazi and said, "How do you see my son's future?" So he had said, "Television is a great medium, Mr. Kapoor, and you will see that it will take all my students in." And he was so true. This is way back in 1975. He was so true. And he said, any suggestion for Pankaj? He said, ask him to diversify his talents. And in years to come, I never knew what he meant. In years to come, I realized, oh, I could write. Oh, I could direct. Oh, I could produce. These are things which I never knew. I thought I was only an actor, which is why one should try and explore. You should not close your doors to anything. And today's time, you guys are youngsters. Yeah, you guys should go out there and not just stay to one single thing. You should just try and explore and then decide for yourself which is the line that you want to take up and follow. That's what would be my humble suggestion to you intelligent guys, all of you.
Pankaj sir, thank you so much. You gave us so much time. This is this is a milestone in our lives. We would remember this something of an event that has happened to us, and we will take this to our graves. We are so grateful to you, Pankaj sir. We cannot imagine the joy.
So sweet to all of you. It's been wonderful speaking to all of you.
Definitely.
Lots of love to all of you, and best wishes to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.